In the 2nd century AD, the Roman Empire stood at the height of its power, stretching across nearly 5 million square kilometers, an immense living body that reached from the Atlantic shores of Iberia all the way to the distant Persian Gulf. Breathing, trading, moving and expanding with quiet confidence, and at its very heart lay Rome itself, the eternal city, a place that believed it would outlast time empires and memory, a city where stone roads remembered countless footsteps and every sunrise revealed a world already awake and restless. Rome was not simply a capital, it was a crossroads of humanity, a place where the far edges of the known world gently collided, where caravans, ships, and marching feet carried stories, goods, and unseen companions into the narrow arteries of the city. If you were to walk those streets in your imagination now, slowly and without hurry, you would feel how tightly packed everything was. Buildings leaning toward one another as if sharing secrets, balconies hanging overhead, sunlight broken into fragments before it could reach the ground, and below a constant flow of people moving shoulder to shoulder, unaware of how closely their lives were brushing together. The air itself seemed alive, layered with sounds and scents. The calls of merchants, the clatter of carts, the rhythm of sandals on stone mingled with the smells of baked bread, spiced wine, sweat, animals, incense, and waste, all swirling together into something uniquely Roman. This was a city where the world arrived daily not only in spirit, but in substance, where marketplaces displayed silks from the Far East shimmering softly beside chainmail crafted in Gaul, where amphorae of deep red wine from the Roman heartland were stacked nearby, and where every object carried the memory of distant hands and distant lands. Free citizens walked beside scholars, slaves passed unnoticed among senators, and people of every creed and color shared the same streets, fountains, and shadows, bound together by the simple fact of proximity. Rome's greatness was built on connection, on movement, on exchange, and yet those same qualities made it something else entirely, something far more fragile than it appeared. Without knowing it, the eternal city had become the perfect environment for disease to thrive, a place where invisible travelers could pass effortlessly from body to body, unnoticed and unstoppable. In such density, nothing truly remained isolated. Every cough, every touch, every shared space became part of a vast, unspoken network linking lives together in ways no one could see. From a modern perspective, we might gently recognize what the Romans could not, or that Rome was in its brilliance and vitality, the ultimate super-spreader city, a place exquisitely designed for the rapid and silent movement of illness. Yet, at the time, this was simply life, as it had always been vibrant, crowded, and endlessly active. A city confident in its strength, unaware that its greatest vulnerability was woven into the very fabric of its success. And so, beneath the marble statues and the banners of empire, beneath the noise and color and ambition, an unseen stage was already being set. One where the smallest of actors, far beyond the reach of human senses, were quietly preparing to change the course of history, not through armies or politics, but through the intimate, fragile closeness of human life itself. In the summer of 166 AD, when the sun hung heavy over the ancient roads of the Roman Empire, 3 legions began their long journey home from the distant eastern lands of Parthia. They returned not as triumphant symbols of Rome's endless reach, but as weary men carrying something unseen, something that travelled with them in silence. At first, no banners warned of it, no messenger announced its arrival. It moved quietly among the soldiers, settling into their bodies as they crossed deserts, rivers, and familiar stone roads that led back toward the heart of the empire. By the time they reached Roman camps and cities, the gift they carried had already begun to reveal itself. Skin erupted with sores and swollen pustules. Fevers burned relentlessly, stealing rest and clarity. Severe diarrhea weakened even the strongest bodies, and an unmistakable smell of decay lingered in the air, drifting through tents and barracks like a dark fog. Death did not rush. It waited. And because of that patience, it spread. Rome, vast and powerful, was unprepared for an enemy that did not ride horses or carry blades. This was not a foe that could be confronted on a battlefield. It slipped through marketplaces, through shared water, through touch and breath. It entered homes quietly without knocking, and soon it reached the attention of the most respected physician of his age, Galen. Known throughout the empire for his intellect and skill, Galen had studied the human body with care and curiosity. He had travelled widely, observed closely, and written extensively. Yet now, as he returned from Parthia himself, he found that all his accumulated knowledge faced something it could not name. Galen stood at the center of this unfolding catastrophe, not as a hero with answers, but as a witness searching for understanding. He treated the sick with the best methods available to him, applying poultices, offering rest, observing symptoms with unwavering focus. He watched as some patients slowly recovered their lives, spared but their bodies forever marked. Their skin healed unevenly, leaving scars that told a story long after the fever faded. Their strength rarely returned fully. Others were not so fortunate. Galen examined the dying and the dead carefully, studying wounds and lesions, opening bodies in search of a common thread, a shared cause that might explain the devastation. He hoped to find something tangible, something visible, something that reason could grasp. But nothing revealed itself. The true enemy remained invisible beyond the reach of even the sharpest eyes of the 2nd century. As weeks turned into months and months into years, the illness showed no respect for rank or status. Senators and slaves fell ill alike. Wealth offered no protection. Power granted no immunity. The streets of Rome, once filled with debate and commerce, grew quieter. The empire's immense network of roads, once symbols of connection and control, became pathways for suffering. Entire towns weakened under the strain, their populations shrinking, their rhythms broken. The plague moved outward from Rome's brilliant center, touching province after province, leaving behind a trail of grief that stretched farther than any army ever had. Even the highest figures in the empire could not escape its reach. 3 years after the disease first arrived in Rome, Emperor Lucius Verus succumbed to the same fever and blistered skin that afflicted countless others. His death did not slow the illness. 11 years later, Marcus Aurelius, philosopher, emperor, and symbol of stoic endurance, followed him, taken by the very same symptoms. Galen witnessed these losses not as distant historical notes, but as personal moments within a long, exhausting vigil. He recorded what he saw, knowing that writing was the only defense he had left. He documented patterns, timelines, and outcomes even as the plague continued its quiet work. By the year 180 AD, the scale of the disaster became almost impossible to comprehend. An estimated 70 million people had died. More than a quarter of the Roman Empire's population had vanished. Cities that once thrived with sound and movement now carried a different stillness, one shaped by absence. Galen, despite his brilliance and dedication, remained powerless to stop the spread. He lacked the tools, the concepts, and the invisible window into nature that later centuries would possess. All he could do was observe, describe, and endure. From our distant vantage point, it is easy to wish that Galen had known what we know now. With the instruments of the 20th century, the illness that haunted him would have been recognized as smallpox, a disease eventually conquered only in 1980, nearly 1800 years after it ravaged Rome. Yet in Galen's time, this knowledge lay far beyond reach. The true nature of the enemy, a virus unimaginably small, less than 1/100th the width of a human hair, remained hidden. Still, even without understanding it fully, Galen captured something essential, the quiet power of an unseen force capable of reshaping history. In that sense, his careful notes became a bridge across time, connecting his world of uncertainty with ours, where the same invisible agents still move among us, reminding us gently and persistently that life has always unfolded alongside mysteries we are only just beginning to understand. If we could quietly step back through time, carrying with us the calm knowledge of the 20th century, we might wish to sit beside Galen as he worked, surrounded by the low murmur of Rome and the restless breath of the sick. With what we know now, the mystery that haunted him would feel, if not simple, then at least nameable. The illness that scarred skin brought fierce as fever, and moved through the empire with indifferent persistence would have revealed itself as smallpox. To Galen, it was an unknowable force, a shadow with no face. To us, looking back through centuries of accumulated understanding, it has a name, a history, and even an ending. Smallpox, the disease that would only be fully erased from the world, in 1980 lingered among humanity for nearly 1,800 years after the Antonine Plague. For almost 2 millennia, it traveled with us generation after generation, shaping lives in ways both obvious and unseen. It is strangely comforting and a little unsettling to realize how close Galen was to the truth, without ever being able to touch it. He observed carefully. He recorded symptoms with patience and honesty. He noticed patterns, the way the disease moved through bodies and communities alike. What he lacked was not intelligence or dedication, but the tools and concepts that had not yet been born. He lived in a world where the smallest known agents of disease were still far too large to explain what he was seeing. If he had possessed the microscopes, the germ theory, and the genetic insight of modern medicine, the answer would have quietly unfolded before him. The enemy was not poisoned air or divine punishment, nor imbalance of humours, but something far smaller, far simpler, and far more ancient. A virus is at first glance almost nothing at all. It is smaller than 1/100th the width of a human hair, so small that even imagining its scale requires us to shrink our sense of proportion. It is not a creature in the way we usually think of creatures. It has no breath, no heartbeat, no hunger of its own. It is in the most literal sense just a particle, a tiny package of genetic instructions wrapped in a protective shell drifting silently through air, water, or blood, waiting. There is something oddly poetic in this simplicity. All that power, all that consequence, contained within something so minimal it barely seems to exist. Yet this simplicity is precisely what makes viruses so enduring. They do not need much to persist. They do not build bodies or maintain complex inner worlds. They wait for life to come to them. And when they find the right host, the right chemistry, the right quiet opening, they awaken. The virus does not announce itself with sound or movement. It slips inside a living cell and gently, almost politely, borrows the machinery already there. The cell continues its work, unaware at first that its efforts are being redirected, that it is now making copies of something that is not truly part of it. From this process, countless new viral particles emerge, each one carrying the same spare instructions, each one ready to continue the cycle. Knowing this now, it becomes clear that the Antonine Plague was not an isolated tragedy, nor a unique turning point. It was one chapter in a much longer story. Viruses had shaped human history long before Rome rose to power, and they would continue to do so long after its marble faded into ruin. They influenced the outcome of wars, altered population growth, redirected trade routes, and quietly nudged societies toward change. Sometimes they arrived as sudden disasters, sometimes as slow, persistent companions, but always as participants in the human story. And it would not end with smallpox. Even as one virus was finally defeated through collective effort, patience, and global cooperation, others were already present, already adapting, already exploring new ways to exist alongside us. This is not a reason for fear, but for perspective. Viruses are not invaders from outside the natural order. They are part of it. They have been with life for as long as life has been capable of copying itself. In many ways, they are mirrors reflecting the vulnerabilities and strengths of the organisms they encounter. To recognize that this was not the first time viruses changed the course of history, and that it will not be the last, is to accept a deeper truth about life on Earth. Change does not always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it comes as something almost invisible, something that moves beneath notice, shaping outcomes quietly and patiently. The realization that Galen never reached is one we now carry with us, that the smallest things can leave the largest marks, and that understanding them is not about mastering nature, but about learning to listen more closely. In that listening, there is a gentle reassurance. We are not separate from these forces. We are part of the same long unfolding story, still being written, still moving forward, one quiet breath at a time. Toward the end of the 19th century, at a time when the world seemed increasingly confident in its understanding of nature, a quiet mystery was unfolding in fields of tobacco. These plants were not just crops. They were luxury livelihood and trade woven into the economies of North and South America. And yet, something unseen was moving through their leaves, leaving behind strange patterns like green mosaics painted by an invisible hand. The plants weakened their growth, distorted, as if they were trying to speak in a language no one yet understood. Into this gentle crisis stepped a Russian botanist named Dmitry Ivanovsky, a careful observer rather than a conqueror of nature. He did not rush to conclusions. He listened, he watched, and he wondered. At that time, science believed it already knew the smallest enemies of life. Bacteria had been identified, cultured, filtered, named. If a disease existed, surely it must be caused by one of them. Ivanovsky set out to prove exactly that, not with grand declarations, but with a simple, elegant experiment. He took the leaves of infected tobacco plants and crushed them slowly, patiently, until they became a liquid extract, as though he were releasing the plant's hidden story into fluid form. Then he did something clever. He passed this liquid through a porcelain filter, a filter so fine that even the smallest known bacteria could not pass through. In theory, whatever emerged on the other side should have been harmless, clean, stripped of all infectious power. And yet, when this filtered liquid touched healthy tobacco plants, the disease returned. The same mottled patterns bloomed across fresh leaves. The same quiet destruction unfolded again. The result was shocking, not because it was dramatic, but because it was subtle. Something had passed through the filter, something smaller than bacteria, something science did not yet have a name for. Ivanovsky stood at the edge of a realization without fully stepping into it. He knew that the cause of tobacco mosaic disease was not a bacterium, but he could not yet see what it was. Still, the door had been opened. The idea that an infectious agent could exist beyond the limits of known life was now loose in the world, waiting to be understood. From this moment, the concept of the virus was born not as a clear definition, but as a question, a whisper, a suggestion that life or something like it could be smaller, stranger, and more elusive than anyone had imagined. And yet, for all its importance, this discovery did not arrive with fanfare. There were no images, no photographs, no shapes to hold in the mind. For decades, viruses remained invisible, inferred only through their effects. It would take another 40 years of patient technological progress before humanity would finally see them. When that moment came, it transformed the abstract into the tangible. Imagine for a moment that we could shrink ourselves down not a little, but 1,000,000 times smaller until we stood just 1 micrometer tall. In that strange, silent scale, the world would feel vast again. A grain of dust would loom like a boulder. A single cell would appear as large as a room. And there, drifting between these cellular giants, viral particles would become visible to the naked eye. Tiny, yes, but unmistakably real. Shapes with edges and symmetry, carrying within them the power to change the fate of plants, animals, and entire civilizations. Seeing them for the first time did not make them less mysterious. In some ways, it made them more so. For how could something so small, something that could slip through filters designed to stop life itself, wield such influence? The discovery did not answer that question. Instead, it invited us to sit with it, to accept that nature often reveals herself not through sudden clarity, but through gradual unveiling. Ivanovsky did not know he was standing at the beginning of a new chapter in biology. He was simply following evidence, trusting observation over assumption. And in doing so, he helped humanity take its first quiet step toward understanding an unseen world that had always been there, waiting patiently, moving softly through leaves, bodies, and time itself. Now, as your breathing slows and the world outside this room feels a little farther away, let me invite you to imagine a universe that exists all around you, yet far beyond the reach of your eyes. A universe so small that it drifts unnoticed through the air you breathe and the skin you touch. In this hidden realm, there are more viruses on Earth than there are stars in the observable universe. Not just a few more, but tens of millions of times more. Try to let that number settle gently in your mind, not as something overwhelming, but as something quietly astonishing. Every grain of sand beneath a calm shoreline, every distant star you've ever seen in a night sky, multiplied again and again, until numbers themselves seem to lose their sharp edges and become something soft, abstract, almost poetic. Each of these viruses is smaller than 1/1000th of a millimeter. Some are as tiny as 20 nanometers, so small that even among the microscopic, they are almost whispers rather than objects. Others are giants by viral standards, nearly as large as bacteria, drifting slowly through this nanoscale universe like slow-moving planets among dust. This is not emptiness. This is a crowded, intricate world, a nanocosmos rich with variety, structure, and quiet purpose. As we drift deeper into this unseen universe, shapes begin to emerge, each virus carrying a form as distinctive as any animal or plant we know. Some appear as simple rods, slender and minimal, like delicate needles suspended in space. Others take on smooth, spherical shapes, while some spheres are crowned with tiny spikes, giving them a textured, almost jeweled appearance. There are angular forms, too precise and mathematical, shaped like tiny polyhedra. Their flat faces meeting at exact edges, as if designed by a careful architect. And then there are the forms that feel almost imaginative, even playful. Certain viruses resemble tiny spiders with leg-like structures extending from a central body, balanced and symmetrical. Among them, bacteriophages stand out as some of the most intricate shapes in this entire nanocosmos. They look less like living things and more like miniature space probes, complete with a head, a tail, and delicate appendages that seem designed for a very specific mission. It is easy, in the calm of this moment, to picture them drifting through a vast, invisible sea, patiently waiting, not hunting in any aggressive sense, but simply existing ready for the precise encounter they are shaped for. Other viruses carry forms that feel more fluid, almost sculptural. Ebola, for example, appears not as a neat sphere or rigid structure, but as a long, twisted filament, like a knotted thread frozen in motion. It curves and loops back on itself, an elegant yet unsettling shape, reminding us that nature does not always favor simplicity. And then there are the giants of this tiny realm, the pythoviruses, enormous by viral standards, moving slowly through the nanocosmos like ancient creatures. These viral giants infect amoebae, single-celled organisms that themselves inhabit watery microworlds, and the image of such a monster virus pursuing its microscopic host feels almost mythic, like a story told at a scale far removed from our own. Yet all of these forms, from the simplest rod to the most complex spider-like structure, share a common theme. Inside each of them lies something remarkably familiar. Beneath the hard outer shell, made of protein carefully assembled and sturdy, there is a genetic core. Sometimes it is double-stranded DNA, similar in structure to the DNA that carries the instructions for your own body. Other times it is single-stranded RNA, simpler, more exposed, yet still capable of holding essential information. These viruses are not cells. They do not have the bustling interior life of a cell. No tiny factories constantly producing energy. No internal landscapes filled with membranes and machinery. Instead, they are more like messages sealed in envelopes, each one carrying a set of instructions tailored with quiet precision to a specific recipient. Every virus carries its own genome, a unique sequence of genetic information shaped by countless generations of replication and change. And every genome is specialized. One virus is tuned to humans, another to animals, another to plants, and still others to bacteria or simple microbes. They drift freely, and in that free state they are strangely inert, almost neutral, like letters waiting to be opened. Only when the chemistry is right, when the match is perfect, does that envelope open and the message inside come alive. In this way, the nanocosmos is not a battlefield, but a network of potential connections, each virus existing in a state of quiet readiness. As you rest with this image, it may help to think of this hidden universe not as something threatening, but as something deeply woven into the fabric of life itself. These tiny forms, unimaginably numerous and exquisitely shaped, have been drifting through Earth's history for billions of years, adapting, changing, and persisting alongside every other form of life. They are part of the background rhythm of the planet, like ocean currents or the slow movement of clouds across a night sky. And here, in this moment of calm attention, you can simply observe them in your mind's eye, floating gently in their nanoscale universe, silent, intricate, and endlessly varied. A reminder that even in the smallest corners of existence there is complexity, beauty, and a quiet sense of wonder, waiting to be noticed. Out in the open world, drifting through the air, resting on a quiet surface, or floating gently in a drop of water, a virus is almost nothing at all. It has no hunger, no awareness, no motion of its own. It does not breathe, or grow, or search for purpose. In this state, it is calm, inert, and strangely peaceful, like a message sealed inside a bottle that has not yet found the right shore. If the chemistry of its surroundings does not match its nature, the virus remains harmless, unable to act, unable to unfold its potential. It can pass through your body unnoticed, settle briefly on your skin, or drift past your lungs without consequence. In this form, it is not an enemy, not a predator, but a quiet particle waiting patiently suspended in time. And this waiting can last for hours, days, sometimes far longer, without urgency, without intention, simply existing in a kind of biological stillness. But everything changes when chance brings that tiny particle into contact with the right host. When the chemistry aligns, when the surface of a living cell offers the precise molecular shapes, the virus recognizes something ancient and automatic begins. There is no decision, no malice, no awareness. The virus does not attack in the way we imagine attacks. Instead, it fits. Like a key sliding into a lock that has been waiting for it, the virus binds to the outer membrane of the cell, and in that quiet moment, the boundary between outsider and insider begins to dissolve. The viral shell opens just enough to deliver its most precious cargo, a fragment of genetic material, into the interior of the cell. This fragment may be DNA or RNA, simpler and smaller than our own. yet complete enough to carry a set of instructions. Once inside, the virus does not build its own factory. It does not bring tools or energy. Instead, it gently, almost invisibly, redirects the machinery already present. The cell continues its work, still following the laws of chemistry it always has. But now the instructions have subtly changed. Ribosomes that once produced proteins for the cell's own maintenance begin to assemble viral components instead. Enzymes that once served the cell's needs now copy viral genes again and again, without knowing they are doing anything unusual. In one strategy, the virus remains in the cytoplasm, the open interior of the cell, using what is available there to create new viral particles. These copies are assembled piece by piece, shells forming around newly made genetic fragments until the cell becomes crowded with replicas of the original visitor. Eventually, the balance breaks. The cell can no longer contain what it has made, and the new viruses spill out, released to drift away, and begin the process anew elsewhere. But some viruses follow a quieter, deeper path. Retroviruses do not simply borrow the cell's machinery for a moment and then leave. Instead, they take the long view. After entering the cell, their genetic material is carefully converted into a form compatible with the host's own DNA. Then, with remarkable precision, it is inserted directly into the cell's genome, becoming part of the cell's most intimate blueprint. From that point on, the viral code is no longer separate. It is copied every time the cell divides, passed along as though it had always belonged there. The cell lives its life unaware that some of its instructions did not originate with it. In many cases, the virus remains silent, its genes resting quietly among the host's own, causing no immediate harm, simply waiting. This is not conquest in the dramatic sense, but integration emerging so subtle that the line between self and other begins to blur. From the virus's perspective, this is perfection. With almost no structure, no metabolism, and no independence, it achieves reproduction by relying entirely on life itself. It does not need to move, because life moves for it. It does not need to think, because chemistry guides every step. It does not need to build complexity, because complexity already exists all around it, ready to be borrowed. And yet, for all this efficiency, there is nothing rushed or aggressive in the process. It unfolds according to physical laws that are steady and predictable. The same laws that govern the folding of proteins, the pairing of bases in DNA, and the slow, rhythmic work of cells maintaining themselves. Seen this way, the virus is less a villain and more a mirror reflecting how deeply interconnected all life is at the smallest scales. It reminds us that living systems are not sealed fortresses, but open conversations, constantly exchanging matter, energy, and information with their surroundings. In the soft quiet of this understanding, the fear begins to fade, replaced by a sense of wonder. Even the smallest particle resting silently until the moment is right follows patterns older than memory patterns that link every cell, every organism, and every breath into a single ongoing story. Are viruses alive? In the quiet space between wakefulness and sleep, this is a question worth approaching slowly, gently, without the need to force an answer. For much of human history, we have relied on simple, comforting definitions to tell us what counts as life. In classrooms and textbooks, life is often described as something that can move on its own, something that grows over time, something that can reproduce independently, something that takes in nutrients, transforms energy, and releases waste. These criteria feel intuitive, almost like a checklist for belonging. A tree grows toward the light. An animal seeks food. A bacterium divides and becomes two. By these familiar measures, viruses seem to stand politely outside the door. They do not walk or swim or drift with intention. They do not grow larger day by day. They cannot reproduce by themselves, no matter how long we wait. They have no metabolism, no steady inner chemistry humming away to keep them alive. Left alone, a virus is silent and inert, more like a crystal of dust than a breathing organism. And yet, this neat conclusion begins to soften. When we stay with the question a little longer, when we allow curiosity to replace certainty. Because science, at its most human, is not about drawing hard lines, but about noticing where those lines begin to blur. In 1992, in England, something quietly unsettling was discovered in a cooling tower. At first, scientists assumed they were looking at a bacterium. It was simply too large to be anything else. For nearly a decade, it sat comfortably in that category, until higher-resolution imaging revealed a surprise waiting patiently beneath the surface. This was not a bacterium at all. It was a virus. And not just any virus, but one of unprecedented size and complexity, a gentle giant among microscopic minnows. They named it mimivirus because it mimicked living cells so convincingly that it had fooled experts for years. This virus carried more than just a fragment of genetic code wrapped in protein. Inside its shell were enzymes, tools of chemistry components we had long believed belonged only to true living cells. It still could not live independently. It still relied on a host to complete its existence. But it occupied a place uncomfortably close to life's threshold, like a shape half seen in dim light, refusing to resolve into something simple. Mimivirus did not overturn our definitions overnight, but it did something more subtle and more important. It invited doubt, and doubt is often the beginning of understanding. As more of these giant viruses were discovered, scientists found themselves rethinking old assumptions. Perhaps life is not a single doorway you either pass through or do not. Perhaps it is a shoreline with waves of complexity washing gradually from the inanimate into the animate. From this perspective, viruses begin to look less like lifeless specks and more like something in between. They are not alive in the way we are alive, but they are not dead in the way stones are dead. They carry genetic information, the same molecular language that writes every cell in your body. They are seamlessly compatible with life, able to slip their instructions into living systems as if they belong there all along. And in many ways, they do. Modern scientists increasingly speak of viruses not as mistakes or anomalies, but as participants in the long story of biology. Some have suggested that viruses deserve their own branch on the tree of life, rooted deep near the base alongside bacteria and eukaryotes close to the earliest chapters of existence itself. This idea is not about elevating viruses or excusing the harm they can cause. It is about acknowledging complexity without fear. Viruses challenge our desire for tidy categories. They remind us that nature rarely conforms to human definitions, and that the most interesting things often live in the spaces between. For someone listening in the quiet of the night, this realization can feel strangely comforting. If even life itself resists strict boundaries, then perhaps it is acceptable that we too exist in gradients rather than absolutes. Perhaps being human is not about fitting a perfect definition, but about participating in an ongoing process shaped by forces both visible and invisible. Viruses in this gentle light are not villains or monsters. They are ancient companions woven into the fabric of life, reminding us that existence is less like a checklist and more like a slow unfolding story. And as you rest, letting your thoughts drift and settle, it is enough to hold this question softly without needing to answer it fully. Are viruses alive? Maybe not in the way we once imagined life, but not entirely outside it either. They linger at the edge, quiet and persistent whispering that the universe is more subtle, more patient, and more interconnected than we often allow ourselves to remember. Imagine standing quietly at the southeastern edge of England, where soft green fields slowly give way to the deep blue of the English Channel, and where the white cliffs of Dover rise gently into view, glowing pale and calm against the sky. For generations, these cliffs have been a symbol of homecoming, of safety, of reassurance after a long journey. Their color feels clean, almost comforting, as if the land itself is breathing slowly and steadily. But if we allow ourselves to linger here, not just with our eyes, but with our curiosity, these cliffs begin to tell a far older and subtler story, one that stretches far beyond human memory into a time when the world itself was younger, and the rhythm of life moved to a very different tempo. The cliffs are made of chalk, a soft form of limestone, and chalk, at first glance, seems simple and uniform. Yet this apparent simplicity hides an astonishing truth. Every tiny grain of chalk, each particle fine as powder beneath your fingers, is the fossilized remnant of a once living organism. These grains are coccoliths, microscopic plates of calcium carbonate that once formed protective shells around single-celled algae known as coccolithophores. Floating gently near the sunlit surface of ancient oceans, these algae drifted with the currents, quietly carrying out photosynthesis, drawing energy from sunlight and turning carbon dioxide into life. Each coccolithophore was small beyond imagination, invisible to the naked eye. Yet together, they formed blooms so vast they could change the chemistry of entire seas. Encased in their delicate spherical armor of calcium carbonate, they lived brief, luminous lives, dividing, multiplying, and spreading across the oceans in numbers that defy easy comprehension. But even these tiny architects of the cliffs were not alone in the world, and they were not invulnerable. Like all life on Earth, they existed within a web of relationships, including one of the most ancient and intimate relationships of all, the relationship between life and viruses. Somewhere in the same waters where coccolithophores floated and fed on sunlight, there were viruses far smaller still, drifting patiently. These viruses were perfectly adapted to their hosts. Despite the protective mineral shells of the algae, the viruses found ways in penetrating the defenses and slipping into the living machinery within. When conditions were right, infection followed. Inside the algal cells, viral genetic material took control, redirecting the cell's energy away from its own quiet work of living and toward the production of countless new viral particles. What followed was not an explosion in the dramatic sense, but a gentle, devastating cascade. Algal blooms flourished, filling the oceans with life, and then, just as predictably, they collapsed. Infected cells died in enormous numbers, releasing their mineral shells to drift slowly downward through the darkening water column. This cycle repeated again and again. Bloom infection collapse, life rising toward the light, then sinking back into silence. Over thousands, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands of years. These microscopic shells accumulated on the ocean floor. Grain by grain, layer by layer, they settled, compacted by time and pressure, into thick beds of chalky sediment. During the late Cretaceous period, around 70 million years ago, this process reached a remarkable scale. Coccolithophores bloomed and died in vast, recurring waves, and the remains of their calcium carbonate shells built up relentlessly. Eventually, these deposits reached astonishing thicknesses, in places forming chalk layers up to half a kilometer deep. What we see today in the White Cliffs of Dover is the exposed edge of this ancient accumulation, lifted and sculpted by geological forces long after the algae themselves were gone. The cliffs, serene and luminous in the present, are in fact a vast biological archive, an immense graveyard created not by a single catastrophe, but by countless quiet endings repeated over immense spans of time. In this way, the cliffs become a bridge between worlds. They connect the visible landscape we know to an invisible past dominated by microscopic life and even smaller agents of change. The viruses that infected the coccolithophores left no direct fossils of their own. They were far too small, too fragile, too transient to be preserved in stone. And yet, their presence is written unmistakably into the rock. Without viral infection, the cycles of bloom and death would not have unfolded in the same way, and the steady rain of coccoliths to the ocean floor would have been altered. The chalk itself, soft beneath our hands and bright beneath the sun, is a consequence of these ancient viral pandemics. It is a reminder that viruses, though invisible and often feared, have been shaping the Earth on a planetary scale for hundreds of millions of years. They are not only agents of disease and destruction, they are also participants in the long, slow choreography of life and death that builds continents and landscapes. As we stand before the White Cliffs of Dover, breathing calmly and listening to the distant sound of waves, we are looking at the outcome of a relationship between life and viruses that predates humanity by tens of millions of years. The cliffs whisper of oceans filled with drifting algae of sunlight, captured in tiny cells of infections spreading silently through the water, and of mineral shells settling gently into darkness. They tell us that even the most solid and enduring features of our world can arise from processes that are subtle, repetitive, and almost unimaginably small. In the quiet presence of these cliffs, we are invited to soften our sense of time, to let our thoughts slow down, and to recognize that the story of viruses is not only written in outbreaks and fear, but also in stone, in landscapes, and in the patient ongoing history of the Earth itself. Imagine for a moment that evolution is not a quiet, orderly march forward, but a slow, endless conversation whispered across millions of years. And in that conversation, viruses have always had a voice. They are not merely intruders knocking at the door of life, but persistent participants in a long, intimate exchange between survival and change. At the heart of this story is a gentle but relentless arms race, a dance between virus and immune system, where neither side ever truly wins. Yet both are transformed by the struggle. When a virus enters a living body, it does not arrive with malice or intention. It follows chemistry, shape, and chance. But the damage it can cause forces life to respond. Cells learn to recognize patterns, to remember past encounters, to react faster and more precisely the next time. Over countless generations, these responses accumulate, shaping immune systems that are more subtle, more layered, and more resilient than anything that came before. In animals, this quiet pressure helped sculpt the complex defenses. We now take for granted defenses that can distinguish friend from foe, self from other, danger from safety. Yet this is never a one-sided story. As immune systems grow more capable, viruses change as well. Their genetic material mutates, experiments, and adapts, exploring new ways to enter cells, new disguises to slip past defenses, new strategies to survive. Just a little longer. This back and forth is not dramatic in the moment, but over deep time, it becomes one of the most powerful engines of biological innovation. Adaptation follows infection, and infection follows adaptation, each step nudging life into new forms. But viruses do more than challenge life to defend itself. Sometimes, unexpectedly, they give something back. Beyond the arms race lies a quieter role, one that is almost poetic in its subtlety. Viruses can act as messengers, carrying genetic information from one organism to another, even between species that would never otherwise exchange such instructions. When a virus hijacks a cell, it copies itself using the machinery of its host, and in doing so, it can pick up fragments of genetic code. When that virus later infects another organism, it may deliver those fragments into a completely new biological context. In this way, genes can move sideways through the tree of life, not just downward from parent to offspring. Among the most intriguing of these messengers are retroviruses, whose method of reproduction involves weaving their genetic material directly into the DNA of their host. Most of the time, this integration is temporary, affecting only the cells of a single body. But on rare occasions, a retrovirus inserts itself into a sex cell, an egg, or a sperm, quietly embedding its code into a future generation. When that happens, the viral sequence is no longer just a visitor. It becomes a permanent resident, passed down through descendants generation after generation. Over millions of years, these rare events accumulate, leaving a layered record of ancient infections written into the genomes of living species. Sometimes these viral gifts are neutral, doing little more than occupying space. But sometimes they become essential. Scientists believe that one such retroviral contribution played a crucial role in the evolution of mammals by helping to create the placenta, the remarkable organ that allows a developing embryo to connect with its mother while remaining biologically distinct. A piece of viral machinery once used to fuse viral particles with host cells was repurposed by evolution to allow cells in the placenta to fuse and form a stable interface between two lives. What was once a tool of infection became a foundation of reproduction. In moments like this, the line between enemy and ally grows soft and indistinct. Viruses, often seen only as agents of disease, reveal themselves as unexpected partners in the long story of life's creativity. They disrupt, but they also connect. They challenge, but they also contribute. And through their constant presence, they ensure that evolution never stands still. In the quiet glow of this realization, it becomes easier to see evolution not as a battlefield filled with winners and losers, but as a vast, ongoing negotiation shaped by pressure, chance, and cooperation in equal measure. Viruses have pushed life to become more adaptable, more complex, and sometimes more compassionate in its biological solutions. As you rest with this thought, you can imagine these tiny particles drifting through deep time, invisible and patient, influencing the shape of immune systems, the structure of genomes, and even the way new life begins. They are reminders that growth often emerges from challenge, and that even the smallest forces acting gently but persistently can leave an enduring mark on the living world. Now, let us drift inward, away from cities and cliffs and ancient seas, and settle into a quieter, more intimate place. Not into the past, measured by centuries or even millions of years, but into something far closer, something you carry effortlessly with you, something that hums softly inside every cell of your body. In 1990, a remarkable human story began not with fanfare or certainty, but with curiosity and patience. Scientists around the world joined together in what became known as the Human Genome Project, a gentle yet ambitious attempt to read the full instruction manual of being human. They were not searching for meaning in a philosophical sense, but for sequence, for order, for the quiet logic written in molecules. Over 13 years, from 1990 to 2003, they carefully assembled the sequence of roughly 3 billion base pairs, the chemical letters that spell out our DNA. If written as text, those 3 billion characters would fill hundreds of thick volumes, an encyclopedia not of history or law, but of life itself. At first, many imagined that within these pages they would find a clear and satisfying explanation for what makes us human. A long list of genes, each one neatly responsible for a trait, a behavior, a vulnerability, or a strength. But science, like nature, rarely offers simple answers. When the final sequence was complete and researchers began the slower work of understanding it, a surprise emerged, one that quietly reshaped our understanding of ourselves. Only about 4% of this vast genetic landscape corresponded to genes that actively code for proteins, the working molecules that build and maintain our bodies. 4%, a small island of obvious meaning in an ocean of something else. The remaining 96% did not fit easily into earlier expectations. For a time, much of it was casually labeled junk DNA, a name that reflected uncertainty more than knowledge. Yet, as the years passed and tools became more refined, that label gently fell away. This DNA was not useless. It was regulatory, structural, historical. It was context rather than command rhythm, rather than melody, and within it woven so deeply that it could not be separated out. Scientists discovered something both unsettling and strangely comforting. Around 8% of the entire human genome has its origins in viruses. Not in recent infections, not in passing illnesses, but in ancient viral encounters that reached into the very cells responsible for reproduction. Retroviruses, unlike many other viruses, do something unusual. When they infect a cell, they do not merely borrow its machinery for a brief moment and then leave. They insert their genetic material directly into the DNA of their host. Most of the time, this happens in ordinary body cells, and the viral sequence disappears when the organism's life comes to an end. But on rare occasions, unimaginably rare when measured in a single lifetime, a retrovirus infects a germ cell, an egg, or a sperm, a cell, destined to become part of the next generation. When that happens, the viral code is no longer temporary. It becomes hereditary. It is copied and passed on not as an illness, but as inheritance. Over millions of years, through countless generations, these events accumulated. Slowly, quietly, without intention or awareness, viral sequences became part of what it means to be human. They were carried forward not because they were harmful, but because they were tolerated. Sometimes neutral, sometimes subtly useful, sometimes simply present. Today, when we look at our genome, we find that these viral remnants outnumber the sequences that define our own proteins. In a very real sense, we carry more viral history within us than strictly human genetic instruction. This is not a cause for alarm, and certainly not for discomfort. These viral sequences are ancient, worn smooth by time, domesticated by evolution. They no longer behave as invaders. They are part of the landscape, part of the story. Some of them have even been repurposed. A viral gene long ago absorbed into the genome of early mammals plays a crucial role in the formation of the placenta, the organ that allows mammals to nourish their young safely within the womb. What was once a mechanism for viral replication became, through deep time and quiet adaptation, a cornerstone of mammalian reproduction. This is not an exception, but a reminder. Evolution does not waste. It reshapes, it recycles. It turns past threats into present foundations. When we say that we have more virus in us than ourselves, it is not a statement of loss, but of connection. It tells us that life has never been a solitary endeavor. From the very beginning, living systems have interacted, exchanged information, borrowed solutions, and adapted together. The boundaries we like to draw between self and other, between organism and invader, are softer and more permeable than we often imagine. And as you rest with this idea, breathing slowly, perhaps feeling the quiet rhythm of your own body, it becomes easier to see viruses not only as agents of disease, but as participants in a much longer and more intricate story. They are echoes of ancient encounters written into us, carried forward without judgment. Your DNA is not a static blueprint, but a layered memory, a record of survival, adaptation, and deep time collaboration. And in that sense, you are not just an individual life moving through the present moment. You are a living archive, a gentle continuation of processes that began long before names, before species, before even cells as we know them. As this thought settles, there is no need to analyze it further. Let it simply be what it is, a quiet truth resting comfortably within you, just as those ancient sequences rest within your cells, unchanged, unhurried, and at peace. In the quiet search for beginnings, one of the most surprising truths about viruses is this: they leave no traditional fossils behind. Unlike bones pressed into stone or shells captured in ancient sediment, viruses are simply too small, too delicate, too fleeting. They are measured in nanometers, far below the scale of anything that can be preserved by pressure, heat, and time. Even the most resilient virus is little more than a fragile package of genetic instructions wrapped in protein easily broken apart by sunlight, oxygen, or the slow chemistry of decay. Over millions of years, rocks shift. Continents drift, oceans rise and fall, and viruses vanish without a trace. There are no viral skeletons waiting patiently in the ground. No amber preserves them. No limestone cliffs carry their shapes. And so, for a long time, it seemed impossible that we could ever trace viruses back through deep time. How do you find the history of something that leaves no physical imprint on the earth? How do you follow the trail of an entity that dissolves almost as soon as it falls apart? This absence might sound discouraging, but in the soft logic of science, absence often invites a different kind of listening. If viruses do not leave their mark in stone, then perhaps they leave it somewhere else, somewhere quieter, somewhere closer. The answer slowly and unexpectedly revealed itself not beneath our feet, but within our own bodies. Inside every cell, folded carefully into spirals of DNA, lies a record not only of who we are, but of what has passed through us. Modern scientists have learned to read this record like a long whispered memory. Instead of searching for fossils in rocks, they began searching for what are sometimes called molecular fossils. Traces of ancient viral encounters written directly into genomes. Every time a virus infects a living organism, it interacts with that organism's genetic material. Most of the time, the encounter ends when the infection ends. But occasionally, something different happens. A virus, particularly a retrovirus, inserts a fragment of its genetic code into the DNA of its host. Usually this happens in ordinary body cells, and when the organism dies, the viral trace disappears with it. But on very rare occasions, a virus infects a reproductive cell, an egg, or a sperm, a cell, destined to pass its genetic material into the future. When that happens, the viral sequence does not vanish. It is copied quietly and faithfully from generation to generation. Over vast stretches of time, these tiny insertions accumulate, building a hidden archive of ancient infections. By comparing the genomes of different species, scientists can begin to reconstruct when and where these viral traces first appeared. If the same viral sequence is found in many related animals, it suggests that their shared ancestor encountered that virus long ago. And this is where the story becomes especially gentle and strange. When researchers examined the genomes of mammals, they discovered viral sequences shared not just by humans, but by a wide array of other species as well. Aardvarks, marmosets, bats, and many others carried fragments of the same viral code. At first glance, this suggested a single ancient infection, one that occurred before these species diverged. But the pattern was uneven. Some mammals carried the viral trace, others did not. The distribution was scattered, irregular, almost conversational rather than orderly. This absence was as meaningful as the presence. It told a different story. Not one great viral event, but many. a series of infections that jumped across species boundaries again and again. Viruses moving quietly through ecosystems, passing from animal to animal, adapting, retreating, returning. These cross-species epidemics did not happen over a few generations or even a few thousand years. The genetic evidence suggests they unfolded over roughly 15 million years. 15 million years of repeated contact of silent exchanges between viruses and their hosts. We do not know exactly what these ancient viruses did to the animals they infected. We cannot say which caused illness, which passed unnoticed, or which perhaps even offered some unexpected benefit. What we do know is that their genetic signatures remain. They are still there, embedded in living DNA carried forward into the present moment. In this way, viruses reveal themselves as historians of life, even as they escape the traditional fossil record. They remind us that history is not only written in monuments and stone, but in sequences, patterns, and echoes preserved at the smallest scales. Tracing the first virus then does not mean finding a single moment of origin neatly labeled and dated. It means recognizing a long intertwined relationship between viruses and life itself. A relationship marked by repetition, adaptation, and continuity, rather than a clear beginning or end. The molecular fossils inside us suggest that viruses have been part of the story of life for as long as life has been capable of recording its past. They whisper of ancient encounters that shaped evolution quietly, without spectacle, without witnesses, except for the DNA that remembers. And as you rest with this thought, breathing slowly, it can be comforting to realize that the search for the first virus is not a hunt for a lost monster, but a gentle exploration of connection, a reminder that life has always been porous, always in conversation with the unseen, that even the smallest entities can leave lasting impressions not in stone, but in the living fabric of existence itself. Let's slow everything down here and imagine that we are no longer standing in a laboratory or a lecture hall, but somewhere much quieter. Perhaps you're sitting comfortably, eyes heavy, breathing steady, while the question gently drifts toward you. Not demanding an answer, only inviting curiosity. Where did viruses come from? How did something so small, so strange, come to occupy such an intimate place in the story of life? Scientists do not yet have a single answer, but instead a small constellation of ideas, each one illuminating a different possible path through deep time. And together they help us sense the shape of a mystery that stretches back billions of years. The first idea is often called progressive evolution, and it begins not with a virus, but with ordinary genes quietly living inside cells. Within the cells of complex organisms, especially eukaryotic cells, there exist small segments of genetic material that do something unusual. They move. These segments, sometimes called jumping genes, do not always stay where they were originally written in the genetic text. Instead, they can cut themselves out and reinsert elsewhere, as if a sentence in a book could quietly lift itself from one page and settle onto another on far away. At first, this movement happens entirely within the safety of a single cell, but over immense spans of time, it is possible to imagine that some of these wandering genetic fragments gained additional abilities. Perhaps a fragment learned how to wrap itself in a simple protein coat. Perhaps it learned how to slip out of one cell and survive briefly in the space between cells. And then, slowly, improbably, it might have learned how to enter another cell entirely. In that moment, something new would have emerged, not fully alive, not fully inert, but capable of transmission. This idea fits particularly well with retroviruses, which still behave in a way that echoes this origin story. Retroviruses insert their genetic material directly into the DNA of their host, becoming part of the host's own genetic narrative, at least for a time. They feel almost like escaped fragments of the genome itself, genetic ideas that learned how to travel. In this view, viruses did not descend from living organisms in the usual sense, but instead grew outward from genetic material that already existed, gradually acquiring the traits that allow them to move, infect, and persist. The second hypothesis takes us in the opposite direction, and it feels, in a way, like a story of loss rather than growth. This is the regressive hypothesis, and it suggests that viruses may once have been fully living cells. Imagine a time early in the history of life when simple cells competed fiercely for resources. Some cells may have discovered that survival could be easier if they relied on others. Step by step, such a cell might begin to discard parts of itself. Why maintain a full metabolic system if another cell can supply energy? Why keep complex machinery if you can borrow it? Over generations, this process of shedding could continue until the once independent cell became entirely dependent on its host, retaining only the genes essential for copying itself. In this way, a parasite is born. We already know that something like this has happened before. Mitochondria, the power plants inside our cells, were once free-living bacteria. Chloroplasts, which allow plants to harvest sunlight, were also once independent organisms. Over time, they surrendered their autonomy and became permanent residents inside larger cells. They can no longer survive on their own. When scientists look at giant viruses such as mimiviruses, which are far larger and more complex than typical viruses, and even carry some basic molecular tools within their protein shells, it is tempting to imagine them as echoes of a more complete past. Perhaps they are the remnants of ancient cells, reduced by time and adaptation into something simpler, something parasitic, something we now call a virus. The challenge with this idea is that most viruses are extraordinarily minimal, far more stripped down than even the most reduced living cells we know. Still, the regressive hypothesis remains alluring, because it reminds us that evolution does not always move toward greater complexity. Sometimes it moves toward efficiency, toward dependence, toward simplicity. And then there is the third hypothesis, the one that feels the most distant, the most profound, and for many people, the most unsettling. The idea that viruses may have existed before life itself. To explore this possibility, we must travel back to a time before cells, before membranes, before metabolism as we understand it. Early Earth was a place of restless chemistry, where molecules formed, broke apart, and formed again in endless cycles. Somewhere in that churning environment there may have arisen a molecule capable of storing information and copying itself. Many scientists believe this molecule was RNA. Unlike DNA, RNA can both carry genetic information and perform chemical reactions. In some experimental settings, RNA can even help replicate itself without the need for complex cellular machinery. If such self-replicating RNA molecules existed, they would not have been alive in the modern sense. They would not eat, grow, or sense their surroundings. But they would do something fundamental. They would persist through replication. In this context, viruses begin to look less like intruders and more like ancient survivors. A simple RNA virus capable of copying itself might not need a cell at all in the earliest stages. Cells in this view may have come later as more stable, self-sustaining systems that enclosed and protected chemical processes. Once true cells appeared, these early replicating molecules could have adapted to them, learning to hijack cellular machinery rather than building their own. In this virus-first hypothesis, viruses are not broken pieces of life, nor escaped fragments, but rather companions that walked alongside life from its very beginnings. Life and viral existence would have co-evolved, each shaping the other, intertwined from the very start. It is a quiet thought and a humbling one, that the line between non-life and life may have been crossed not once, but gradually through entities that resemble viruses more than anything else we see today. Of course, we may never know which of these ideas, if any, tells the full story. The evidence is fragmentary, written not in stone, but in sequences of code buried deep within genomes. Perhaps different kinds of viruses arose in different ways, some from wandering genes, some from reduced cells, some from ancient replicators that predate life as we know it. Evolution is rarely tidy. It prefers multiple solutions, overlapping histories and blurred boundaries. As you rest with this uncertainty, it may help to remember that not knowing is not a failure of science, but one of its quiet strengths. These hypotheses are not competing answers shouting over one another. They are gentle attempts to listen to the deep past, to infer its shape from the faintest of echoes. And perhaps that is fitting, because viruses themselves exist in a similar way, half seen, half understood forever, on the edge of definition. As you let these ideas settle, you may feel the story widen, stretching far beyond human history, beyond Rome and Galen, and recorded memory into a time when Earth itself was young. Somewhere in that vastness, something learned how to copy itself, how to persist, how to leave a trace. And whether we call it a virus or not, that quiet beginning may still be with us, written into every cell, accompanying us, as we sleep, as we breathe, as we dream. As we come to the quiet end of our journey, it helps to slow our thoughts and let them drift gently, the way dust settles in a beam of lamplight. We began this story with a simple question, one that sounds small but opens into something vast. What was the first virus? And now, after wandering through Roman streets, peering into the hidden code of our own cells, and drifting back toward the earliest chapters of Earth's history, the answer feels less like a single point and more like a soft horizon. Viruses may have existed before what we usually call life before cells had walls and metabolisms and clear boundaries. Or perhaps they emerged alongside the very first living systems entwined with them from the beginning, learning, adapting, persisting. Either way, what becomes clear is not a moment of origin, but a relationship. Viruses have always been there, not as outsiders, but as quiet companions to life itself. Think back gently to ancient Rome, to the summer heat trapped between stone walls, to the crowded markets and narrow streets. The people living there had no words for viruses, no microscopes, no knowledge of genes or particles smaller than sight. And yet, a virus was present all the same, moving silently from body to body, reshaping history without ever being seen. From the perspective of those who lived through that time, the plague must have felt like a force of nature, something woven into the world itself. In a sense, they were not wrong. That same invisible kind of entity, made not of intention but of replication, has been shaping the story of life far longer than human memory can reach. Now shift your attention inward just a little to something closer and more personal. Inside every one of us, folded neatly into almost every cell, is DNA, the long molecular script that tells our bodies how to grow, repair, and persist. For a long time, we imagined this script as purely our own. A clean inheritance passed down from ancestors who were fully human. But modern science has shown us something more subtle and more beautiful. Woven into that script are fragments of viruses, ancient echoes of infections that happened millions of years ago. These viral traces are not intruders anymore. They are part of the text. They are read, copied, and carried forward generation after generation as naturally as any other part of us. In that sense, the story of viruses is not only a story of illness or disruption. It is also a story of memory and continuity. The same processes that once caused harm also helped shape immune systems, guide evolution, and even contribute to complex features that define mammalian life. Nothing about this is hurried. It unfolded slowly over immense spans of time, with countless small changes, accumulating into something enduring. If that feels overwhelming, let it soften instead into reassurance. Life has always been navigating relationships with forces it cannot fully control, and yet it persists. Viruses did not arrive late to the party of life on Earth. They were there from the earliest moments, or perhaps even before the music began. They learned to copy, to adapt, to survive in the spaces between other living things. And life in turn learned to respond, to defend, to incorporate, and sometimes to make use of what viruses brought with them. This long coexistence reminds us that the boundary between what is alive and what is not has never been as sharp as we might like. Instead, it is more like twilight, a gradual fading from one state into another. In that gentle in-between space, viruses have always lived. When we step back and see the whole arc from ancient pandemics that reshaped empires to the quiet viral sequences resting inside modern DNA, a calm understanding emerges. Viruses are not an accident or an anomaly in the history of life. They are part of its deep structure, as fundamental as mutation, adaptation, and change itself. They have influenced which species survived, how bodies learned to protect themselves, and how genetic information moved and transformed across time. None of this happened quickly, and none of it happened alone. Life and viruses grew together, responded to each other, and settled into a balance that is still evolving today. And so, as you rest with this thought, perhaps letting your breathing slow and your muscles relax, it becomes easier to accept the idea that life on Earth has always been a shared project. Not a tidy one, not a perfectly predictable one, but a resilient and creative one. Viruses, in all their simplicity, have been part of that creativity from the start. They remind us that even the smallest things can shape vast outcomes, and that history is often written by forces we cannot see, only feel in their effects. In the end, the first virus may not be a single ancestor waiting to be identified. It may be an idea, a pattern, a way that information learned to persist before cells, before organisms, before us. And that idea has never left. It continues, quietly, patiently, accompanying life as it unfolds moment by moment across this planet. If you've been listening with tired eyes or a busy mind, you can let that thought settle now. The story does not demand a conclusion so much as it invites rest. You've been gently traveling through the long history of life on Earth, and for now that journey can pause here in calm understanding as the world outside grows quieter and sleep comes naturally.